Why do they use our symbols if we never did anything? His brother Rolando, brother, been working with me for 10 years. He's pointing, he said, are y'all ready to unlock the secrets of Washington, D.C. and the architecture of the U.S.? Are y'all ready to go home? Well, let's turn this thing off and get to the second part here. No, brother, you can keep it right here, no problem. So here at the Temple of Aset on the island of Philae, where they built a temple devoted to the goddess.
Now her loved her so much. Look what he built for her. He built this for his woman. Okay, the Temple of Aset, not Buckingham Palace or anything like that. Actually named it after her to show you they had no patriarchal existence. But as you can see, there's those uteruses I'm telling you about. Look, even here. You see that hole right there? And then do you see one right there too? For the light to come through? That's what they did. They always made passages for the spirit realm because they knew the spirit realm had to be that which induces all realm of physicality or manifestation. So they always put these holes everywhere so life can pass through. Immortality, wombs, rebirth, creation, and recreation. That's how come they got this here and that there. So when the sun passed, it passed right through the middle of both of them. And it'll come past from the eastern region, pass right through the middle of both of these, over the top of them, and through the middle of both of these, and causing all type of dynamic interactions inside of here with the sunlight. And then it'll pass over. And they went back here too. There was more back here. And then there was 3 levels inside, including the Holies of Holies, the Hyperstar Hall, and then you had the multi-function room, and then the Holies of Holies, and the Hyperstar Hall, and then there was one more too. Well, I can't think of right now. But anyway, this thing will pass over all of those columns and set in the west, in the back, at the Valley of the Kings.
Isis or
And
Set.
that's why they called it the Valley of the Kings and planted it in the west, because as the sun set in the west, so did the bodies of the kings when they fell. They was buried in the west, placed in the west.
In this particular site, as I said, Imhotep received a book, which he called the Book of Foundations. It came down from heaven, given to him from the god Ptah. And so in this particular book, all the structures throughout Kemet were based upon the foundation book written by this brother Imhotep. And on this particular island, when they developed this temple for the goddess Aset or Isis, they even in front of this particular temple here, developed a small temple in dedication to Imhotep, the brother who wrote the Book of Foundation for the foundation of this entire temple and all the temples throughout Kemet. We can go on, we can see the small floor plan of the small temple here, of Imhotep's temple on the island of Philae, dedicated to this multi-genius. It is in this particular temple that many people became, when they became ill and could find no cures for them, they would come to this particular temple. They would go inside the temple all the way to the back. And they would lay in the temple at night, and they would dream. And after, in the morning, when they came forth with their dreams, the priests would interpret their dreams and develop ways to cure their diseases, which they call incubation. Sometimes you hear about that, incubation chambers. Sometimes they speak to that with regard to the Greek gods and deities. But long before the Greek gods and deities in Kemet, we had incubation chambers where people had their dreams interpreted. You even remember the story of Joseph, who was interpreting dreams for the Pharaoh, when they just ripped us off on that one. But that's another story for the other lecture that I mentioned before. But here you can see the small temple devoted to Imhotep here.
See what I mean? How they make those doors pass through each other forever into infinity? There it goes right there. And do you see the same thing above it? Like I said, see? The circle with the 2 snakes? See? I've studied this stuff. I don't just talk shit. I be knowing what I'm talking about. And this was their way of representation of life, infinity, immortality. These doors are not just portals for people to walk through. They are also portal for spiritual energy of knowledge to manifest. And each person that built these temples and lived around them and had knowledge of self and studied in these temples, they knew that walking through these doors was the same synonymous as a child coming out of his mother's vagina. because you could leave one dimension and go into another one. Just like in your house, you could leave out of the kitchen, go through the door, and then you could be into another room with a whole different setup of aggregates. And that's what this is demonstrating, that when you leave Earth, your spirit goes through a portal and goes into another existence. It never dies. That's what this, and that's how come they put the blackness, so you can see it, to show you the pure potentiality for manifestations and for life continuation forever.
Around the wall, you can see the brother here. We're always knocking the faces out, chiseling away the faces, so you couldn't see that these are African people. Trying to destroy and deface the monuments, so we wouldn't know the history of our people, so that people could say that they were the developers of this civilization and not Africans. But you can see again Imhotep with his long head and his lips looking like any brother out on the court playing some round ball, Michael Jordan, or whoever you see out there on the streets, brother, at the playground. Looks like anybody else you see in the hood, right here in Inglewood or anywhere else you go. Imhotep. We move on. When Herodotus came into Kemet, Herodotus came into Kemet 450 years before the Christian era. 400 years BCE. 400 years BCE, Herodotus saw the Egyptians were still black. The Egyptians at that time were under Persian occupation. Herodotus was a subject of the Persian Empire. He didn't have to write the Egyptians were black. The Persians, who were considered to be Semitic people, if they were Semitic people, the Egyptians, he would have been able to discern and differentiate the Egyptians from the Semitic peoples. So he was with the Persians when he came in there, and he said that they were black people. So why do these scholars not understand that? Why don't they teach this? Because this is why. Because Herodotus went on to say the names of nearly all the gods came to Greece from Egypt. I know from inquiries I have made that they came from abroad in the seas. Most likely they were from Egypt, for the names of all the gods have been known in Egypt from the beginning of time. We move on. We can see here Egypt and the rise of Greece. Here you go. Just get it on. Okay, don't worry about this. You can see the Egypt and the rise of Greece. Again, they forgot about all the stuff I showed you, all the phases we went through step by step. These are the people, I'm not going to let up off these folks, because they're writing all these damn articles and magazines talking about how emotional we're doing, how we've been. But you don't see, there ain't no cameras here tonight. They're over at the entertainment complex interviewing Diana Ross, and interviewing the Jacksons and all these other people about Malcolm X. They're not in here to interview a brother whose life was turned around by this brother. A brother who flunked the 3rd grade, the teacher said that never amount to being anything. And after I read Malcolm X's autobiography, I changed my GPA from a F and D student to a 3.5, almost a 3.5, almost damn near made Ephebian by the time I graduated from Crenshaw High School, because I read Malcolm X. And they out there interviewing Diana Ross about Malcolm X. She hadn't even read the book. If she had, she didn't learn nothing from it. They need to be in here interviewing us so we can show them what they're missing out on. When Malcolm wrote the book, he wrote a book, Malcolm X on Afro-American history. I read it when I was 16 years old. I was walking around Crenshaw High School with a briefcase full of books on Malcolm. Back in high school, I was writing papers on Malcolm. I had a white teacher that I wrote about the white folks so bad, and I couldn't understand why she kept giving me A's, but I kept writing about them. I wrote how they killed and murdered for the love of killing and murdering. And I've documented it with their own books and with Malcolm. This is what I wrote about with Malcolm, constantly. And I found later that the white woman, her husband, was an attorney for the Black Panthers. She didn't tell me that after the semester was over, and I was wondering what was over. But Malcolm changed my life, resurrected me from the dead, Malcolm. And so he's got these Negroes out here who can't stay out of bed with white folks, interviewing them about Malcolm. Need to come here and interview some of y'all about Malcolm. We move on, we can see here that Herodotus said that 2 black women, who they call doves, actually founded the Kemetic civilization. 2 black women founded the Oracle Dodona. He described these women as being black, as these doves as being black, because you know the dove in nature is usually white. So the reason he described the doves as being black, because they were black women from Egypt that founded the first oracle in Greece. We move on, we can see he went on to say, this is what Herodotus is writing in the face of all this stuff. In the face of all these Persians, he's writing this. Now he's talking about a colony of blacks that is far up as the Black Sea, way up into Russia. Blacks, the Egyptians up in Russia. This is what Herodotus writes about them. The Egyptians did, however, say that they thought the original Colossians were men from Sesostris' army. And that's brothers of the 12th dynastic period. You saw those black faces from the 12th dynasty. He goes on to say Sesostris' army. My own idea on the subject was based first on the fact that they what? They have what? Black skins and woolly hair. Not that that amounts as much as other nations have the same. Well, it's true. You had India and other places where they had black skin and woolly hair also. But he saw that these were black skin, woolly hair people in Colossus. He wanted to say, and secondly, and more especially, on the fact that the Colossians, the Egyptians, and Ethiopians are the only races which from ancient times have practiced circumcision. So he said not only were these people the same anatomically, but culturally, ceremonially, they were the same. This was a very scientific conclusion this man reached. This was a rational mind that he was in a rational state when he reached this conclusion. You can see clearly here. He's looking at the black folks, they're looking at him. He said they black, that was it. He moved on. Here's Herodotus right here. He's white. Nobody can deny that. Is he white? Is he not? Is he white? Is he white? Herodotus white? So when Herodotus looked at here at Amenemhet, he could see that Amenemhet wasn't white. He could see that. He looked at himself in the mirror and saw what he looked like, and he looked at the brother here, and he wrote what he saw. He saw that they were black, and he wrote it. So why can't the archaeological scholars and the university professors write what Herodotus wrote? White folks and Arabs. But here you can see another white one. This is when the whites came in to rule Egypt under Ptolemy, the Romans. You can see that they're white here, so you can see this one don't look nothing like this one. So what is this? If these are not the same, if this is a white person, then what is this? It's black. Why can't these scholars see that? So what did Homer say? Homer said, we saw Herodotus 450 years BC. Here's Homer 800 BC. He's before Herodotus. He's writing about the Nile. He said, so I returned to the heaven-fed waters of the Nile, where I moored and made the proper ritual offerings. And after appeasing the deathless gods, built a mound of earth to the everlasting memory of Agamemnon. When all this was done, I set out for home, and the immortals sent me. So here you got a Greek, Homer, who said he went to the what? To the heaven-fed waters of the Nile. He's saying that the Nile come from heaven. Isn't that what I said the Egyptians said? That the land of Punt was heaven, the Taanat of God's land, and this is who the Nile source was. So the Greeks knew that. Homer knew that 800 years before the Christian era. Man, this is something. We move on. So here you can see at one time they considered the entire continent of Africa to be Ethiopia, which means blackface. Ethos means burnt, oaks means face, blackface. So Egypt was on the continent of the black faces. Right here, Egypt and Ethiopia. We move on, we can see here. Now here, this goes back to about 1,550 years before the Christian era. 1,500 to 1,600 years before the Christian era, the earliest high culture in Europe on the island of Crete, they had a picture of Zeus back to back with the Ethiopian. Here he is back, Zeus here with the beard, back to back with the Ethiopian. You say, wow, brother, why do they have an Ethiopian there with Zeus? Well, you got to understand that the Ethiopian represents Amun. Amun was a black god, the god of Kemet. So Zeus was a copy of Amun. That's why they put Zeus back to back with Amun. So let's go to the text. Let's go to Homer and see what happened. Homer says about Poseidon. Now you know Poseidon, that's Zeus' brother, the one in the ocean. The cat with the fork. Looks like Satan with the fork, with the long beard. Okay, that guy, Poseidon, however, was now going on a visit to the distant Ethiopians, the furthest outpost of mankind. Half of whom live where the sun goes down, half where he rises. This is Zeus' brother, a god, going to be with the Ethiopians, just like Zeus here. You can see Zeus with the Ethiopian. So Poseidon gone. Now look at the Iliad. Here's Zeus. Zeus went yesterday on an ocean stream, or they all packing up here, on an ocean stream on a visit to the pious or religious Ethiopians for a feast, and all the other gods with him. But he will be back in 12 days, and then I will go at once to the brazen halls and make my prayers. I think I can persuade. So he wasn't going to make a prayer until Zeus got back from Ethiopia with the Ethiopians.